A cloud, a star, flying in the night in the dream. I'm feeling alive with a voice as big as the world. I don't know exactly um what that was. I know I messed up the lyrics, but now I hear it in my head though. Is it like a Christmas song? Is that what it is? Some kind of a Christmas song? A star, hidden in the night, with a voice as big as the world. Hey, Duke. With a voice as big as the world. I have a hard time in this world these days. I know I have a hard time in the world these days because everything now is about complaining, blaming, and over explaining. Ad nauseum. What's that? What is that? What is that little situation called? The when you go like, oh, diminishing returns. I figured it out, Duke. I figured it out. Hey, buddy. He's a wolf dog. This is Duke. Hey, Duke. Here's your camera up there, Duke. He's like, I don't care. I love my daddy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've been studying, Asian philosophies for the past decade and a half of my life. I'm in my mid 50s, and I've been studying, just basically, if you study any kind of Zen or Taoism or any kind of derivation of those two, you're probably going to be reduced to silence. But I'm not going to be necessarily reduced to silence as I'm pacing back and forth on my front porch because I'm a front porch sitter. Um, but anyway, I do think there's something about front porches. Maybe the world doesn't have front porches anymore, and that's what's wrong with people because everything is blaming, over explaining, complaining. Of course, I'm blaming, complaining right now. But you see how weak it sounds. Nobody likes me. Wasn't my fault. Everybody did it but me. Blah 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 blah. 24 fucking 7. That's all I hear. If you turn on any kind of .com, that's what I'm doing right now. Maybe you can agree. Maybe that's what the whole thing is. The whole point of being a human is it to like bitch, complain. You did mean to me. Jesus. That's what everything's about. But now I'm gonna tell you right now. Usually I stay away from all that. I usually just study history. I started doing like a local history blog a couple years ago, and I'm like over 12,000 followers on this thing now. It's at Ashley County now. Go there. And I get to play with all kinds of things there. All kinds of tools and toys and just different takes on history, and get to explore creative writing. You know, I have several characters that I play with there. Bronchi and Pig. Bronchi and Pig. Bronchi is a brown and white donkey who wears a red bandana around his neck. He doesn't complain or blame or over explain. He just takes care of business. Him and Pig, they live in a barn dominium in Cooter, which is suburbial Crosset, which really in itself is nothing more than suburbial Monroe, Louisiana, or maybe Pine Bluff, somewhere like that. I don't even have my glasses on, so I can't really see what all that says. But .com, baby, .com. Maybe I should get glasses. Hello. Um, but yeah, so I was out here grinding my axe on complaining, blaming, and over explaining, and I was just sitting here thinking about how I'd spent my past years is studying this Alan Watts stuff. Man, I really got into the Alan Watts thing. Man, I have all of his stuff, man. It's like a real fanboy, huh? I got everything all at once here from me. Where's my glasses at? I don't know where my glasses are. Dude, where's my glasses? Did you get my glasses? He went in through my locker room during classes. He went in through my locker and he smashed my glasses. He's a beastie boy, man. He's a .com. Let's see what this thing says up here. Facts, bro. Goated porch, bro. That's right. Oh, hey, Phantom Disciple. That's a cool fucking name. My dog's name is Duke. I call him Duke of Hazard. He's this dude is part he's kind of, I don't know how I wound up with something like this. It's not something I ever had. Before I had him, I had a miniature pincher. Before that I had a red bone. He's part he is part Shih Tzu. Oh, he's part Wubbin. Mm-hmm. You want to say hello? Say hello. Tell him you wobble. He's part Shih Tzu and something long, and he's still. I tell you what, he still has. This dog still has his gonads, man. How awesome is that? But yeah, so this is a front porch, and of course, front porch people do all kinds of things. They may be a front porch picker. That can be fun. But most of the time, it's kind of a philosophical thing. I sit out here and write. And I don't know, a lot of people bitch about AI. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe. I put something up there. There's just so much you can get done and give people ideas and stuff. It's just like really you're transmitting ideas is really what you're doing. AI content does not bother me, at all. And I like to see people walking back and forth, some crazy lunatic. What I used to call a vertical car theist. You ever heard of a vertical car theist? That's somebody that gets in their car with their phone on vertical mode, just talking about Jesus or something. I'll tell you right now, blah, 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 28 hours, And, now that's the thing everybody does. Every YouTuber I see, they're like in their car. And I was like, why in the hell are these people sitting in their car? And then I'm standing here right now and I hear my neighbor's dogs barking. And I go, oh, that's why they're sitting in their car. It's their studio. It's quiet. But that's so constricted. I gotta walk. I walk at least 16,000 steps a day. And that's what it does. I am some other. I don't know if I'm just seeing things or what, but I don't want to be rude. True. So, Phantom Disciple, who else has got dogs in there, man? Has anybody got any cool dogs? I know mine's kind of mine is mine is just he is a mix, and I just don't know that at my age and experience in life that I can love something that was hyper bred. I once had this white lab, and I got its yeah, thank you much. Hello. Man, this is the Arkansas, southeast Arkansas front porch. You got your swing, and you got your fan, and your dog. You always got to have your dog. And I have some things here I'll show you. I want to show you on the camera though, if you want to look. I'm kind of a nut, a nature nut. Most of the time, you may find, somebody's upset. But there's two things here that I think you may find interesting. This, can you see this? I don't know if you can see that or not. Are you there? If you can even see it, you probably can't see that. That's a mussel shell, a river mussel shell from the Ouachita River. And you can't really probably tell from this angle, but it's got, it's basically a rainbow inside of there. You may find river pearls in there. So that's one thing that you'll find me interested in is ecological things. And this is a railroad spike. And railroad spikes are another great part of history. I live in what's called Crossett, Arkansas, which is a company town. In fact, they did a movie about us several years ago, back in 2016. There was an accusation of, where part of it's a paper mill and a chemical chemical company and Koch Industries had purchased it, and they are a target sometimes for social warriors. So we were under attack for a while, but it actually kind of cleaned things up in the end, which wasn't bad, but it cost a few jobs. We got it cleaned up though. But it was a great place to be, if you could find the house the time I did, it's a great place to be. Let's see here. I live off grid too. Yeah, yeah, that's the way to be, man. Yeah, we try to be as off as you can imagine. Um, like way out anyway, and not using much. Now I want to tell you that we do have rural. How do you say that word? Internet, fiber optic internet out here. $60 a month, so that makes the whole even being online possible. That's a new addition for out here, um, but that's a great addition too. I can tell you. If you ever want to do anything where you want to share anything, you got to be able to have some kind of a stream going out, man. I'll tell you what else is out here on the front porch. Can you see that? Can you see that? What is this thing? No, so this what I'm trying to say is that's a grinder. I don't know if you people are 420 friendly, but in Arkansas we're 420 friendly, man. They give you little pieces of paper, but I'm not. I may just sit here and do exercises and smoke cannabis for you if you want me to do that. I don't know. West Virginia. I've been to West Virginia. Of course, when you think of West Virginia, let's see. What do I think of? Maybe coal mines. First off, that's kind of like words that are synonymous. And this area right here, we created in Crossett, Arkansas. Later, after we were a company town. We became we created what was called sustained forestry. So this company that came here, it's really, really wild, man. This guy, he's blind. When he was 17 years old, he was injured inside of a mining accident over in Colorado, but he was from Davenport, Iowa, and he went over there to work in the mines. And his nickname later became Cap Gates because Cap on the dynamite. Anyway, he had an accident where he literally had a glass eye and he could hardly see out of the other eye. And but he was a visionary nonetheless because he had the opportunity there and got together a group of investors and bought 47,000 acres of what they call virgin wood, pine trees, oak trees, a mixed thing, and spent a year and a half out at the land office in Hamburg, which is another part of the county, and just buying more land with these investors he had got from Iowa, from some of his people that he went up there begging for money with doctors and people that had made money off the Michigan logging and wood industry previously, but they were running out, and so they helped finance this property. And by the end of that 18 months, they had bought another 50,000 acres. So they owned 100,000 acres by the time they dragged a sawmill over here, which was dead in the center of the woods. $7 an acre for the property, if you can believe that. $7 an acre. But then it was definitely out in the middle of the woods. And it took them a long time to even get a sawmill over here. They actually had to, they didn't have roads, and this is a swamp delta. We're right here right over here is the Ouachita River, and right over there is the Bayou Bartholomew. Y'all know what the Bayou Bartholomew is? The Bayou Bartholomew may be what people may call the Bayou Bartholomew. Bayou Bartholomew. And the Bayou Bartholomew is the most wonderful place ever, if you've ever heard about anything to do with water, because it has to do with one of the most biodiverse places in the entire world, actually. But anyway, so these guys, they got together and they got all this money together and he bought this land and they moved it all over here and they finally got this sawmill over here and they just started sawing and sawing and building towns. Building the town, they built houses after houses. They built 2,500 houses. That was after they lived in tents for about 2 or 3 years, though. They had to live in tents. They had no other thing to do but live in tents because it was the middle of the woods. Now, the tents, after a while, became part wood. By the time that couple of years got up, you know, and you're talking about in 1899. So you're talking about the company started in 1899. By 1901, they had purchased all the rest of the land and they were, ready to roll. They had a little small, what they call a buck sawmill over here, and started building the company houses and buildings and all that kind of stuff, the stuff around a sawmill, and finally got a sawmill moved in. And by 1902, about this time of year, started here in 1899, and 1902 shipped their first product. And basically, they had $1 million invested, which today the transference rate on that was somewhere around 33 to 1. So it was $33 million in today's dollars that they invested before they ever shipped one product, which was, that's not unheard of anywhere. You're going to typically invest a lot of money before you make any. Just ask Jeff Bezos. But anyway, so they started forming this company town, and this company town is a thing. It's very paternalistic. They supplied everything. They built the church, and when they built the church actually to conform with Arkansas law. There was a guy that was going to put a tavern, to sell alcohol, and they threw up a church overnight to prevent that from happening in the county, in that area of the county. Had to be within 3 miles of a church, so they ran them out. But so everything was controlled like that in one way or the other. You didn't move a business in there unless it was approved by the company. All the houses were owned by the company. All the stores, the merchandise store was owned by the company. You rented the houses from the company. Of course, the company's paying the houses. The they had what they was called bronzies, and bronzies were it was the money. It had its own money, company money, and you would spend that at the merchandise store, the general merchandise, or the commissary, as they might have called it back then. And they had I'd always wondered about these white picket fences that you see people with. Why does someone have a white picket fence? Well, in the case of Crossett, Arkansas, the company town, they had white picket fences due to cows roaming around. Isn't that right, Duke? So they would get there and they would, they would keep them in the yards at night and use them in the morning to milk and use them basically as pets in some ways. But in the day they would let them out so they wouldn't basically defecate, put manure all over the place, and they could feed in what's called the commons, kind of like you would have in old days in England or somewhere. But anyway, so they would, lock the gates, like the cows, out during the day and lock them in during the evening. The company had swimming pools. They drilled one well, and it was a salt water well, so they just set that up as a swimming pool. They had a big swimming pool, and they had an opera house, and of course they had what's called the Rose Inn. The Rose Inn was named after Cap Gates' wife, and Cap Gates is the one, kind of the founder of it. And his wife actually is another interesting story. And I know I don't want to spend forever on here, but I'm telling about this little company town. But I do want to tell about the hospital around 1923 or so. So this is, 23, 24, 25 years after the initial founding of the town. Cap's wife, Rose, again, whom the Rose Inn was named after, she became sick. In fact, she had stomach cancer, and a lot of the monitoring stuff they would, would have to go way up to, I think it was somewhere in Minneapolis, somewhere wherever the clinic was. But Cap wound up investing, uh, and I think that some of his family may have traced it down how he actually came up with the money. But he invested in the radiology equipment and the training and the building in his hospital. In other words, so he instead of her having to be gone, and and him having to be gone, he invested the money to have the radiology equipment and the training brought directly to them. And it was just, an astronomical amount of money and time invested in it. Of course, Rose did pass away from this, but it was, something again that helped out the people in the company town. Of course, a little bit of history. Okay, let's see. So I see that West Virginia is a little bit of heaven. I could believe that. Now where we're at here is kind of a delta area. It's actually, I live right there on the very edge of. I live what's called the Upper Timberlands. So there may be gravel up under me, but the delta is just right over there on the other side of us. When you get to the delta, when you go down what's called the overflow hill, and I guess a lot of rivers have an overflow hill, but this one is really big. Most, like the other river over here on this side of me, is the Washita, and it doesn't really have uh it does have an overflow hill as such, but it's more like a bowl. The Washita River Valley area over there is more like a bowl. Now it's about 9 miles wide, but it's a big bowl, you know. But this over here, the Mississippi River alluvial plain, is huge, and it happens to cover half of the county that I'm in. So half of the county is alluvial plain, where they have farming, like soybeans and corn and other types of row type stuff. And they're catching hell right now. Can't sell anything. Their market was China, and China's gone. So it's a shop shape. But then, once you go up Overflow Hill, though, you come up here to the Timberlands. And this is where you have thousands and thousands and millions of pine trees. There's Cap Gates and Russell Reynolds and all these forestry guys. They figured out how to grow some damn pine trees. They even have some of the pine trees that are here are they're replicated everywhere. These trees were they grafted these trees. They didn't use any kind of a genetic modification, but they used grafting, and they would go out there to these trees, uh, and out in the forest, ones that were the straightest and the tallest, and the ones that were the most resistant to the disease and drought and all this stuff. Mainly tall and grows fast, and they just started letting those trees breed, and then they just started planting them everywhere, and they're all over the South. They're everywhere from coast to where it ends, to where the trees end. Anywhere that there's yeah, anywhere there's any kind of thing to do with anything to do with ridges, you're gonna find some pine trees. Well, anyway, I just wanted to come on and talk about this little thing for a minute. I think I started off bitching about complaining and over explaining and blaming and all that kind of stuff. And then I got my mind concentrated on something that I should have had my mind concentrated on, which is something that's interesting to me and keeps me busy. And then I was able to just be quiet. And now I'm no longer feeling upset. And I can go bye-bye now. But if you did sit through this, if you did ever listen to this, I do appreciate you. Thank you very much. Be blessed, as they say. Or as Bobby McFerrin would say, don't worry, be happy. Here's a little song I wrote. Now I gotta figure out how to turn this some bitch off. Don't worry. Be. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Yes.